But yeah, it was a big surprise. It was a huge punch in the nose, but I'm so glad I got to learn about it sooner than later. So just got back from the barber, got a fresh cut, fresh fade, feeling good. Wanted to switch up and work with a new barber, and I'm kind of happy with the haircut. But we're not here to talk about my haircut. I thought it'd be fun to do a 2023 review and share some learnings that I had throughout the year, and also talk about what I'm excited about for 2024. So this review is going to be a little abnormal because this year I took a sabbatical and I took a year off and did absolutely nothing. But for the most part, I do have an annual planning process and it's pretty structured. It works like this. I would have a vision document that outlined where I wanted my life to be and what it would feel like in 1, 3, and 5 years. From there, I would set annual goals in different buckets. It could be health, wealth, relationships, work, whatever was important for me. Within those goals, I would break them down by month. And every single month, I would write down all the things I want to accomplish that month. And every single week, I would prioritize that list and come up with different things I needed to do that week. And every single day, I would pick one thing. And it would usually be the hardest thing that I want to do and try to knock that out. And it wasn't perfect. I didn't follow it every single day. But for the most part, that was my process. And it was pretty successful. I think I achieved a lot of things I want to achieve following that process. And I'm really happy with how my life evolved for doing that for maybe 10 or 20 years. This was the first year where I was like, screw that. I don't want to do that. I want to just do absolutely nothing. I wanted to relax. I went through my notes from the beginning of this year, and at the very top of the list was a reminder to myself to relax, recharge, and to rejuvenate. And every single time I would open up my document to remind myself of what I was supposed to do this year, it was always take a sabbatical and do those 3 things. And I did. And it was fun. It was hard. There were a lot of up and downs. I went through identity shift where I went from being an entrepreneur to not doing that. I quit drinking alcohol. I had to get my first root canal and get a crown. We traveled, had a lot of fun. I got reintroduced to hobbies that I enjoyed as a kid. It was a very slow year, but it was a year full of learnings. So I'm not going to hash out my sabbatical because I did a whole video on that. It was the first episode of my YouTube channel and this podcast. So every year I do a review, and this year I came across this thing called Year Compass. And it has a bunch of great questions, such as the wisest decision I made, the biggest lesson I learned, the biggest risk I took. So that would be fun to pull some of these questions out and answer them. So the first question is around the biggest milestone. So I do like milestones, and I define milestones as things that you'll remember for a very long time. So it could be when you got married, quitting a job, starting a company, having your first kid. For me, obviously this year, the big milestones were going on a sabbatical and starting this podcast. Becoming a content creator is something that I've always wanted to do. And it's funny to say this out loud, but I was more comfortable starting a company than I was to become a content creator. I think there's just something around putting yourself out there, being vulnerable, sharing stories, sharing ideas. And I never knew what I would talk about. I still don't know what I'm going to talk about on this podcast and YouTube channel, but I have faith that I'll figure it out. And that's a big unknown. But here we are, and I'm excited to see where this goes. So I did have 3 simple goals for the year: improve my health, spend quality time with my family and friends, and to have as much fun as possible. What I wanted to do now was to break down that first goal, which was improving my health. And I broke that down into what I call the decade goal. So I had just turned 40 and I wanted my biological age to be a decade earlier to 30, my mental age to be a decade older at 50. So I started to embark on this long journey to make that happen. I started to work out a couple days a week. I started getting all my biomarkers checked. I started seeing a therapist for myself. And I would summarize this goal as very slow, a lot of behavior and habit changes that slowly manifest over time. I wouldn't say I hit that goal yet, but I am getting closer and closer with every single day. I wanted to share some wins and some losses. So the first win, which is also a loss, is that I lost 10 pounds. So the first 3 months, I went super structured where I counted every single calorie. I tried to hit 150 grams of protein, 50 grams of fiber. Everything was tracked. I worked out multiple times a week, both cardio and strength. I got my DEXA scans. And I was very focused on losing between 1 and 1.5 pounds per week. And it worked. I went from 188 pounds to 178 over a course of 10 weeks. And then as the weather got a little bit warmer, my consistency started to slowly wane, and I gained all that weight back in the past month. And that is both a win and a loss. It took so much consistency to lose that weight, and the weight stayed off for most of the summer. Weather got a little bit colder. I felt myself snacking a little bit more, and next, I gained all the way back. So coming to 2024, I definitely want to follow that process again. I have an intention to get the best shape of my life, and I know what I need to do to get there. So going into next year, the goal isn't to just do it for a month or two, or even for the year. It's to make a huge lifestyle change where that just becomes part of my day-to-day life. So tied to this goal was the biggest surprise of the year. So I got my biomarkers checked for everything related to longevity. So checking for cancer, for heart disease, for type 2 diabetes. So the biggest surprise for me was genetically, I have very high risk for heart disease, and getting some of those biomarkers back, even though I was eating healthy, even though I was working out, even though I was kind of on this path, I still scored very, very high for heart disease. And there are numerous tests that you can take to find this information out. But it was a pretty big surprise for me. I'm glad I learned about it 40 and not when I was in my 50s or 60s after getting a heart attack. And the reason I'm grateful for that is because there are a lot of things that I can do today to lower my risk and do a lot of preventative work. I wish I knew about it maybe 5 or 10 years ago. I'm glad I took the test and focused on dialing those biomarkers in. So I'm still doing a lot more research. I plan on doing a whole episode about this. But it was a big surprise. It was a huge punch in the nose. But I'm so glad I got to learn about it sooner than later. Okay, up next is the wisest decision of the year. So the wisest decision for me was definitely quitting alcohol or quitting drinking. So I started off with a sober month in January. And as that month ended, I said, I was feeling great. So I was like, sure, let's extend it to 2. 2 turned into 3 months. 3 turned into 6. The halfway point, I was like, well, let's just make it to the end of the year. And now that we're at the end of the year, I would say I don't really have any plans to drink again. I don't really miss it. It was really hard at first, but now I just can't imagine a world where I would ever drink. I don't miss the hangovers. I have a lot more energy. I sleep a lot better. It's definitely improved my health, both physically and mentally. And I originally stopped drinking because I was feeling a little depressed, and it didn't make sense to me at the time to drink alcohol, which is a depressant, to feel more depressed. And today I feel great, and both physically and mentally and emotionally. And that's enough of a reason for me to just not drink again. I just don't ever see a world where I would ever go back to drinking. I would definitely recommend it. Yes, the wisest decision was definitely quitting alcohol for the year. So now I thought it'd be good to just share some lessons. There are a few, I'll read them off. The first being the importance of taking breaks. So looking back, I wish that I took a year off every 5 to 7 years. And this is the first time I ever did it, and I got so much more clarity. Life just kind of slowed down, and all those things that I put on pause or on hold for my personal life all just accelerated, and it gave me a lot more perspective. So if I could do it all over again, I would take anywhere from 3 to 6 months off every 5 years. And I would time it between any major life changes, in between starting companies, or if I were working in a company and I quit and I was about to start a new one, I would always try to take 3 or 6 months off. And it's kind of counterintuitive to think about that timing. But when you're younger, you have a lot more freedom, you have a lot less expenses, and you have a lot less responsibility. So it's actually much easier to take time off when you're younger. You could take a gap year after you graduate high school or college. If you're already looking for a job, you could take some time off then. I wish I was a lot more intentional of taking time off and not rushing into the next thing. So definitely oscillating between having a fast-paced life and having a slow life, and finding the optimal balance between those two things. So that is a perfect segue into the second lesson, which is finding the right balance for yourself. There's never really a one-size-fits-all for everyone. So whether that's your investment portfolio, where you read about how it's the most optimal portfolio for someone at your age to invest into X, There isn't even a one size fits all for that. I still don't own any stocks, but I outperformed the market by investing into tech startups, my own ideas, cryptocurrencies. I follow a barbell approach, which is very risky on one end and very super safe on the other, such as treasury bills. It's not an approach that most people recommend, but it's something that works for me. Or even work-life balance. There's not a perfect equation for anyone. For some people, it could be 100% work. For some people, it could be 100% life and not working. Most people are going to fall somewhere along that spectrum. And the lesson here is to just figure out where you are on that spectrum for yourself. Number 3 is your identity is multifaceted. Most of what we're taught is to be known as X, to be known as an entrepreneur or an engineer or a designer or an architect or whatever. And most of us are very multifaceted. I think it's very important to lean into all aspects of your identity. If you go to my website right now, it reads, I'm an entrepreneur, a founder, a podcaster, a YouTuber, a content creator, a writer, investor, a collector, a partner, a parent, all of these things. And I'm not just one thing. Of course, I'll be known as one thing, but I like to embrace all facets of my identity and not to be known just as one thing. And that's what makes life so great, which leads to the next lesson, which is number 4. Joy and fun should be integral to life's journey and not just the destination. So I would always be focused on the outcome. I would always be focused on this destination when we achieve X, or when we raise this amount of money, or we reach these amount of users, or if I was this net worth or whatever. I would just be so focused on the destination. And when I would get there, I would just reset the bar and focus on the next destination. And I really did not enjoy the journey. It was just very stressful. I didn't really have a lot of fun. I didn't enjoy it. And that's just not what life is about. You can reset that bar for the rest of your life. And I just didn't want to do that anymore. And that's a lesson here. It's very cliche to say it's not the destination, it's about the journey. But I recently came across this tweet by Scott Belsky. So a lot of people are very focused on longevity right now. It's a thing. There's health span and there's lifespan. But he also mentioned joy span, which is a really great balance to health and lifespan. So if you're optimizing every single minute detail, it's just not going to be a lot of fun. So the way to balance that out is to have joy span, to make sure you're enjoying the day-to-day, you're enjoying your life, you're having as much fun as possible, you're having those little moments throughout the day, just to enjoy the journey. And I think that's really, really important. And that leads to lesson number 5, which is collecting as many memory dividends as possible. So I came across this concept of memory dividends by this book called Die with Zero. And it's defined as memory dividend is a return on investment you get from the creation of memories. Every time you are reminded of a moment, an event, a conversation, person, a scent, or a taste, you are getting a return on your previous investment. So I used to think when people said don't spend money on things, spend money on experiences, that it would be really around traveling and having these grand experiences and moments that you can capture with your phone. And then I realized that it's really about all those little life moments, the smile, the laughter. It was really centered around those life moments. And the way I capture that this year is that I try to take a photo or video every day and capture the entire year through this app called 1 Second Every Day. So the app's pretty cool because it allows you to upload a video or photo clip for every single day, and it stitches a video of all those experiences throughout the year. I captured some vacations that we went on and some cool events that we went to, but the favorite moments I had from watching that video this year were all the little moments I share with my family. It was the dancing in our living room. It was the laughter. It was just all those moments. And I'm so glad that I got to capture those, because those are the moments I'll remember when I look back on this year. One of the things I wish I did a lot more this year is just take a lot more photos, but particularly more videos. I think there's just something nice about video capture. I wish I took more video throughout the year. And my goal for next year is to take a photo or video every single day, upload into the app, and have the most robust video recap of the year. Now that we went through the lessons, I want to share some things I'm excited for next year in 2024. So to start, it's more of the same. I'm still excited about that 30-50 goal. I think the big change that I wanted to make this year is to make it a lifestyle change and not just a temporary one. So it's getting a little bit more deliberate and a little bit more consistent about working out eating healthier, getting better sleep, dialing in my biomarkers, taking the right vitamins, reducing my risk around heart disease, and making this a big lifestyle change and making it a big lifestyle change. So that's probably number one. Number two is getting back into work mode. I'm not the type of person that can retire and do nothing. I did that for a year and I do enjoy working. So my first big project is going to be content, and I want to get more consistent. I want to get better at it. I want to build an audience. I want to share really novel ideas. So I'm starting off with this podcast. We'll see where it goes. The first milestone I want to get is just to get to the first 20 videos and grow from there. But I would say the big theme for the year is consistency. I just want to get a lot more consistent, a lot more deliberate, a lot more focused, a lot more prioritized. 2024 is going to be very different from 2023. And then I would say the third one would be to do it in a way where I can still maintain balance through all aspects of my life. That's one thing that I really liked for this year. I don't want to go too far into anything that would decrease. It's have as much fun and joy as possible, spend quality time with my family and friends, and improve my health and start working on content. I'll start exploring some other business ideas. We'll see if that goes anywhere. But yeah, 2023 was a great foundational year. 2024 is going to be a good milestone year, and I'm really excited to see where it goes. So thanks for listening on this 2023 review. Hopefully these lessons were helpful, and I'll see you in the next episode.